The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data, searching for any unusual patterns among the stars. But tonight was different. Tom Parker sat up straight in his chair as his computer screen flashed red. His eyes widened as he studied the incoming signal. After 15 years of watching empty space, he had finally found something extraordinary. "Sir," Tom called out to his supervisor, Bill Myers, who was doing his routine midnight walk through the facility. "You need to see this." Bill rushed over, coffee cup still in hand. The signal on the screen pulsed with a regular rhythm that couldn't possibly be natural. It followed a clear mathematical sequence, prime numbers, repeated over and over. "Get the director on the phone," Bill ordered, his voice trembling with excitement. "This is no random space noise." Within an hour, the quiet monitoring station transformed into a hub of activity. Scientists and analysts from different departments crowded around Tom's workstation, their faces lit by the glow of multiple screens. Director Anna Roberts arrived, still wearing her pajamas under her coat. "What do we know?" she asked, getting straight to business. "The signal originates from the edge of our solar system," Tom explained, pointing to his calculations. "It's using mathematics as a universal language. Look at these patterns. First prime numbers, then the value of pi, then the Fibonacci sequence. Whatever sent this wants to prove it's intelligent." The team worked through the night, processing the signal through their most advanced computers. As dawn broke over the horizon, they made their first breakthrough. The mathematical patterns weren't just proof of intelligence. They were a key to decrypt a message hidden within the signal. "It's a language primer," one of the linguists announced. "Similar to how we teach someone basic English. They're giving us the tools to understand their communication." Hour by hour, they pieced together the alien message. The excitement in the room turned to concern as they understood what they were reading. "It's a distress call," Director Roberts announced to the emergency meeting of world leaders, held virtually due to the urgency of the situation. "There's an alien fleet stranded at the edge of our solar system. Their main drive system has failed, and they're asking for our help." The world leaders looked skeptical. "Why us?" asked one. "If they're advanced enough for interstellar travel, surely they can fix their own ships." The director played the decoded section of the message. "We have observed your species. While our technology is more advanced, we have seen how humans solve problems in unique ways. Your adaptability, your ability to find solutions with limited resources, your determination to overcome challenges. These are qualities our civilization has lost through over-reliance on automation and artificial intelligence. We need human ingenuity." The message went on to explain their situation. The alien fleet consisted of massive ships carrying millions of their species. Their quantum drive matrix was failing, and their highly specialized engineers couldn't think outside their rigid training to find a solution. Without help, the fleet would drift into deep space, condemning millions to a slow death. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't a grand meeting of civilizations or an invasion. It was a cry for help. "They'd been watching us," the director continued. "They've seen how we repaired the International Space Station with duct tape and improvised tools. They've observed our space missions where we solved critical problems with basic materials. They believe we can help them because we're used to working with less advanced technology. We make things work even when they shouldn't." The next few hours were filled with intense debate. Some leaders wanted to ignore the call, fearing it might be a trap. Others saw it as humanity's chance to prove itself on the galactic stage. Finally, they reached a decision. Earth would answer the call. As Tom Parker watched the final vote come in, he couldn't help but smile. In all his years of searching the stars, he never imagined that advanced aliens would come to humans for help. Yet here they were, about to embark on humanity's greatest adventure, not as conquerors or victims, but as problem solvers. The rescue mission was about to begin. 3 weeks after receiving the distress call, Earth's newest and most advanced spacecraft, The Prometheus prepared for launch. The ship wasn't supposed to fly for another 6 months, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Captain Mark Wilson stood in the command center, watching his crew make final preparations. The team had been chosen not for their academic achievements, but for their practical experience and creative thinking. Each member had a history of solving impossible problems with limited resources. "All systems check complete, Captain," reported Jack Miller, the ship's engineer. He had once saved a Mars rover by reprogramming it with a gaming controller. "Though I still think some parts of this ship are held together by hope and good luck." "Hope and good luck have gotten humanity pretty far," Mark replied with a smile. "Is everyone ready?" The crew of 20 took their positions. They carry humanity's hopes, dreams, and a cargo hold full of spare parts, basic tools, and everything else they could think of. No one knew exactly what they'd need to fix an alien ship. The launch went smoothly, and the Prometheus engaged its experimental faster-than-light drive. The stars blurred around them as they pushed toward the edge of the solar system. The alien fleet had provided coordinates, and after 2 days of travel, the ship's sensors picked up their target. "My God," whispered Susan Lee, the navigation officer. "Look at the size of them." The alien fleet appeared on their main screen. 12 massive ships, each one bigger than any city on Earth. They gleamed like jewels in the darkness of space, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the distant sunlight. But something was wrong. Their formation was irregular, and some ships were slowly drifting out of position. "Opening communication channel," announced David Ross, the communication expert. He had been studying the alien language primers for weeks, broadcasting on their frequency. The response was immediate. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge, showing their first clear view of the aliens. The crew gasped. The alien was beautiful in a strange way. Its body was semi-transparent and crystalline, like living quartz. It floated in zero gravity, with multiple delicate limbs moving in perfect coordination. When it spoke, its whole body pulsed with soft light. "Greetings, humans of Earth." The alien's words were translated by their computer. "I am First Guide White Crystal. We thank you for answering our call." Mark stepped forward. "I'm Captain Mark Wilson of the Earth ship Prometheus. We're here to help." "Please dock with our command ship," White Crystal said. "But I must warn you, our artificial gravity systems are failing. We evolved in zero gravity, and while we can survive in normal gravity, it causes us great discomfort." The crew looked at each other. This would make their job more complicated, but they were used to challenges. The Prometheus carefully approached the massive alien ship. Up close, they could see the problem was worse than they thought. The beautiful crystalline surface was cracked in places, and parts of the ship were dark where power had failed. As they docked, Mark addressed his crew. "Remember your training, but more importantly, remember what makes humans special. We're not here because we have the best technology. We're here because we know how to think on our feet." The boarding party entered the alien ship wearing their spacesuits. The interior was a maze of crystal corridors, designed for beings who could move in any direction in zero gravity. The aliens had tried to accommodate them by creating a temporary floor with guide lights. White Crystal met them personally, along with a group of alien engineers. "Our quantum drive matrix is failing," the alien explained. "The crystal lattice that powers our ships is breaking down. Our engineers are specialists. They know how to maintain the system when it works perfectly, but they cannot adapt to unexpected problems." Jack studied the alien technical displays, his eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible technology," he said, "but sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best solution. Can you show us the physical drive system?" As they floated through the ship toward the engine room, Mark noticed something interesting. The aliens moved with perfect grace in zero gravity, but their movements were rigid, predetermined. They followed exact paths, never deviating. In contrast, his human crew bounced off walls, spun themselves around, and used every surface to push off. Messy but effective. It was their first lesson about these advanced aliens. They were perfect at what they knew, but lost when faced with the unexpected. And right now, the unexpected was exactly what they were facing. The real work was about to begin. The alien ship's engine room was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Instead of the expected pipes, wires, and metal components, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with floating crystals. Each crystal pulsed with inner light, creating a dance of colors that would have been beautiful if not for the obvious problems. Jack Miller floated near one of the larger crystals, his handheld scanner beeping rapidly. "This is bad," he said, looking at Captain Mark Wilson. "Really bad." "Show us," Mark ordered, pushing himself closer in the zero gravity. The alien engineers gathered around as Jack displayed his findings on his tablet. Even through their crystalline bodies, their anxiety was visible. They glowed with a nervous, flickering light. "The quantum drive matrix isn't just failing," Jack explained, pointing to his readings. "It's destabilizing. These crystals are like living computer processors, but they're losing their pattern. Think of it like a computer getting corrupted, except this computer powers the entire ship." First Guide White Crystal's body dimmed slightly, their equivalent of turning pale. "How long?" they asked. Jack ran some quick calculations. "At the current rate of decay, maybe 2 weeks before total failure. When that happens, all ships will lose power. Life support, artificial gravity control, everything will shut down." The alien engineers began discussing among themselves, their bodies flashing with rapid pulses of light. The computer translated their conversation. Complex equations, theoretical physics, and increasingly desperate proposals that all followed their standard procedures. Mark watched them for a moment, then turned to his crew. "What about something simpler?" he asked. "Simpler." White Crystal's translator made the word sound confused. "Our quantum drive matrix is the most advanced propulsion system in known space. There is nothing simple about it." "That's exactly the problem," Jack said, starting to get excited. "You've made it too perfect, too complex. But complex systems have more points of failure. Sometimes the best solution is the most basic one." He pushed off a crystal and floated to his tool bag, pulling out what looked like an ordinary tablet computer. The aliens watched curiously as he connected it to their systems. "Look here," Jack pointed to his screen. "Your crystals work like quantum computers, right? Each one processing countless calculations per second. But they're not just processing. They're actually changing their physical structure to do it. That's why they're failing. The constant changes are creating microscopic flaws in the crystal lattice." The aliens' light patterns showed understanding, but also confusion. "Yes, this is known," one engineer said. "But the quantum restructuring is essential to our drive system. What if it doesn't have to be?" Susan Lee, the navigation officer, suddenly spoke up. "What if we could stabilize the crystals by giving them a break? Like turning off your computer when it overheats." The aliens' light patterns turned chaotic with disagreement. "Impossible. The calculations must be continuous. The pattern must be maintained." But Mark saw where his crew was going with this. "Jack, what if we created a buffer? Something to hold the pattern while the crystals reset?" Jack was already typing on his tablet. "That's exactly what I'm thinking, Captain. We can't fix their quantum drive with our technology. It's too advanced. But we can create a simple electronic buffer system using our computers. It won't be pretty, but it might work." He showed his rough design. The aliens' light patterns turned almost completely dark with shock. "This is primitive," one engineer said. "You want to use basic electronic storage devices to temporarily hold our quantum patterns." "Sometimes primitive is better than perfect," Jack replied. "Your crystals are failing because they never rest. We'll create a rotation system. Each crystal gets a few minutes to reset while our buffer holds its pattern. It's like giving a tired runner a break instead of pushing them until they collapse." The aliens discussed rapidly among themselves. Their perfect, advanced minds struggled with the concept of using such basic technology to save their ships. But they had no choice. Their own solutions weren't working. "There's another problem," Susan added. "We'll need to modify all 12 ships quickly. Once we start this process on one ship, the power fluctuations might affect the others." Mark looked at the failing crystal matrix, then at his determined crew, and finally at the worried aliens. "Then we better get started. We'll need all hands on deck for this one." Human and alien. White crystal glowed with what the humans had learned was their version of agreement. "We will help, but tell us what to do. This is outside our experience." "Welcome to how humans work," Mark said with a smile. "We're making it up as we go along, and somehow that's exactly what we need right now." The next 48 hours aboard the alien command ship were a blur of activity. Jack Miller hadn't slept in what felt like forever, surviving on coffee and energy bars as he worked to build the first prototype of their buffer system. "Hand me that circuit board," he called out to one of the alien engineers, who he had nicknamed Blue because of their constant blue glow. The alien gracefully floated over, passing the equipment with one of their crystalline limbs. "I still do not understand how this primitive technology will help," Blue said, their body flickering with doubt. "These circuits process information millions of times slower than our quantum crystals." Jack connected the circuit board to his growing creation. "That's exactly why it might work," he explained. "Your quantum crystals are like racing cars, powerful but delicate. What we're building is more like a sturdy truck. Slower, yes, but more reliable." Across the engine room, Susan Lee was teaching a group of alien engineers how to modify their own equipment. The scene would have been impossible to imagine just days ago. Advanced alien beings taking notes as a human showed them how to use basic electronic components. "Think of it like a heart bypass," Susan explained, using simple terms. "When a heart is failing, doctors don't try to fix it while it's beating. They use a machine to temporarily take over. That's what we're doing here." Captain Mark Wilson floated into the room, pushing himself off the crystal walls with practiced ease. "How's it coming?" he asked. "We're ready for the first test," Jack answered, closing the panel on his device. It wasn't pretty. A mix of human and alien technology held together with what looked suspiciously like duct tape in places. But it might just work. White Crystal and several other alien leaders had gathered to watch. Their bodies pulsed with nervous energy, creating waves of light that reflected off the engine room's crystal walls. "Beginning test sequence," Jack announced. "Susan, monitor the crystal matrix. Blue, watch the power levels. Everyone else, cross your fingers. Well, if you have fingers." He pressed a button on his tablet. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then one of the smaller crystals in the engine matrix began to dim. "Power levels dropping," Blue announced, their voice worried. "That's supposed to happen," Jack assured them. "Watch the buffer." His jury-rigged device hummed to life. A simple display showed lines of code as it captured the quantum pattern from the dimming crystal. The aliens watched in amazement as the pattern stabilized in the buffer's electronic memory. "Now for the tricky part," Jack muttered. He initiated the crystal's reset sequence. The dimmed crystal suddenly flared bright, then went completely dark. Several aliens made distressed sounds, their bodies flashing with alarm patterns. But Jack kept his eyes on his readings. "Give it a moment," he said calmly. 3, 2, 1. The crystal gradually relit, its internal structure restored to its original perfection. As Jack transferred the stored pattern back, its glow became steady and strong, healthier than it had been in weeks. "It worked," Susan exclaimed, checking her readings. "The crystal's quantum structure is stable. No flaws detected." The aliens' bodies lit up with amazement. They crowded around Jack's device, their light patterns showing disbelief and excitement as they studied the simple yet effective solution. "This should not be possible," one of the alien scientists said. "The mathematics, the complexity. How can such basic technology handle our quantum patterns? Sometimes the best solutions are the simple ones, Mark said. Now comes the hard part. We need to build enough of these systems for all 12 ships, and we need to do it fast. White Crystal moved forward. We will help. Our fabrication units can create your electronic components. Tell us what you need. Jack grinned. Great. But first, we need to make a few improvements to the design. Susan, remember that trick we used to boost signal strength on the Mars missions? What if we? The next few hours were filled with a flurry of ideas. Humans and aliens worked side by side, combining their knowledge in ways never before imagined. The aliens began to understand the human way of what-if thinking, while the humans learned to appreciate the aliens' precise technical knowledge. As Mark watched his crew work, he realized they were witnessing something historic. This wasn't just about saving the alien fleet anymore. It was about two very different civilizations learning from each other, proving that sometimes the best solutions come from unlikely partnerships. But they weren't out of danger yet. The real challenge was still to come, implementing this solution across the entire fleet before it was too late. Spacewalk Team 1. Check in. Captain Mark Wilson's voice crackled over the radio. He floated in the command center, watching multiple screens showing teams of humans and aliens working on different ships. Team 1. All clear, responded Jack Miller. He was outside the third alien ship, his spacesuit reflecting the distant sunlight. Next to him floated Blue, their crystalline body protected by a special field that kept them stable in open space. The view was breathtaking. 11 massive crystal ships stretched out before them, their surfaces now dotted with teams of workers. Human spacewalkers in bulky suits worked alongside graceful alien engineers, installing buffer systems on each vessel. Buffer units secured, Jack reported, finishing the connections. Blue, how's the power reading? The alien engineer's body pulsed with concentration as they checked their instruments. Power flow stable. Crystal matrix accepting the buffer. But there is a problem with the timing sequence. Jack pushed himself closer to examine the readings. This was the tricky part, getting the timing perfect so the crystals could reset without disrupting the ship's systems. One mistake could cause a cascade failure. I see it, he said, making adjustments with his tablet. We need to slow down the transfer rate. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. This human saying. Blue's translator conveyed their confusion. I do not understand how a race can be won by being slow. Jack laughed as he worked. It means sometimes being careful is better than being fast. Like what we're doing now. We could try to rush this, but that would be dangerous. Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Humans were teaching aliens to think flexibly, while aliens helped humans understand their complex technology. It was a partnership nobody had expected, but one that was working surprisingly well. Inside the command ship, Susan Lee was coordinating the installation teams. Her screen showed the status of each buffer system. 5 were now operational, 7 still needed work. Team 3 reports successful installation, she announced. Ship 4's crystal matrix is stabilizing. White Crystal hovered nearby, their body glowing with what the humans had learned was hope. Our people are learning much from yours, they said, not just about technology, but about different ways of thinking. Mark nodded. And we're learning from you, your precision, your attention to detail. It balances our tendency to improvise. Suddenly, alarms blared across the command center. Red lights flashed as warnings appeared on multiple screens. Power surge in Ship 7. Susan shouted. The crystal matrix is destabilizing faster than predicted. Team 4, redirect to Ship 7. Mark ordered immediately. Jack, what's your status? Almost done here, Jack's voice came through. 10 minutes to complete installation. Ship 7 doesn't have 10 minutes, Susan reported, her fingers flying over her controls. Matrix collapse imminent. The alien engineers in the command center began flashing with panic patterns, their bodies creating the strobing effect. But White Crystal moved forward. What would humans do in this situation? they asked Mark. Mark thought for a second. We'd find a way to buy more time. He turned to Susan. Can we transfer power from the completed ships to stabilize Ship 7? The alien engineer's light patterns showed shock at the suggestion. Transfer power between ships. That has never been attempted. First time for everything, Mark said. Susan, work with the alien engineers. Figure out how to link the power systems. Jack, finish that installation and get to Ship 7. We're going to need every buffer system working perfectly for this. The next 30 minutes were intense. Humans and aliens worked together, creating new solutions on the fly. The aliens' perfect knowledge of their systems combined with human creativity proved to be a powerful combination. Power conduits were established between ships, something the aliens had never considered possible. The buffer systems were adjusted to handle the increased load. Every worker, human and alien, pushed themselves to their limits. Finally, Jack's voice came through. Buffer system installed on Ship 7. Beginning power transfer now. Everyone in the command center held their breath, or in the aliens' case, dimmed their glow, as they watched the readings. The crystal matrix in Ship 7 flickered, struggled, then gradually stabilized. It worked, Susan announced, relief clear in her voice. Ship 7 is stable. All buffer systems functioning normally. A cheer went up from the human crew members. The aliens joined in their own way, their bodies creating a beautiful light show of celebration patterns. But they weren't done yet. 5 ships still needed the buffer systems installed, and time was running out. Still, they had proven something important. Together, humans and aliens could accomplish what neither could do alone. Mark looked at his tired but determined crew. Back to work, everyone. We're not finished until every ship is safe. The race to save the fleet continued, but now they knew victory was possible. With only 6 hours remaining before the final ships would reach critical failure, the situation aboard the alien fleet had become desperate. Every minute counted, and exhaustion was taking its toll on both humans and aliens. Jack Miller wiped sweat from his forehead inside his spacesuit as he worked on the 11th ship. His hands were shaking slightly from fatigue, but he forced himself to stay focused. One mistake now could doom thousands of alien lives. How many ships left? He asked through his radio. Just 2 after this one. Susan's tired voice replied from the command center. But we have a bigger problem. The fleet's orbit is decaying faster than we calculated. Captain Mark Wilson's voice cut in. Navigation shows we have less than 5 hours before the outer ships begin drifting into deep space. We need to hurry. The alien engineers working alongside Jack flashed with worry patterns. Their own exhaustion showed in their dimmer-than-normal glow. They had been working non-stop, learning to think and work in ways that went against centuries of rigid training. The buffer installation is at 90%, Blue reported, floating near Jack. But there is damage in this ship's crystal matrix that we didn't see in the others. Jack examined his readings and felt his heart sink. The damage was severe, microscopic cracks spreading through the quantum crystals like a spider's web. The standard buffer installation wouldn't be enough. Captain, he called, we need to try something different here. The normal fix won't work. We don't have time for a new solution. Someone protested over the radio. We don't have time for failure either, Mark responded. Jack, what are you thinking? Jack looked at his tablet, then at the damaged crystal matrix, an idea forming in his tired mind. The cracks in the matrix. What if we use them instead of fighting them? The aliens' light patterns showed confusion. Use the damage. That is not possible. Think about it, Jack explained, getting excited despite his exhaustion. Your crystals work by creating quantum patterns, right? Well, what if we use the crack patterns as part of the quantum structure? Instead of trying to fix them, we incorporate them into the system. There was silence on the radio as everyone considered this crazy idea. It went against everything the aliens believed about their technology. To them, imperfection was failure. Like a river finding a new path, Susan suddenly said, Instead of trying to force the old pattern, we let the power flow through the new structure. White Crystal, who had been listening from the command center, spoke up. This is not how our technology is designed to work. Maybe that's exactly why it will work, Mark said. Sometimes the best solutions come from working with what you have, not what you wish you had. They had no choice but to try. Time was running out, and the other ships were too far away to help if this one failed. Jack began modifying the buffer system while the alien engineers reluctantly adjusted their crystal matrix controls. Everyone ready? Jack asked. This might get rough. He activated the modified buffer. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the entire crystal matrix began to pulse with strange patterns, light flowing through the cracks like glowing rivers. Power levels fluctuating. Blue reported, their voice tense, but holding stable. The quantum patterns are adapting to the new pathways. It's working. Susan exclaimed. The crystal matrix is actually healing itself, using the cracks as new quantum channels. The success gave everyone a much-needed boost of energy. They quickly applied the same solution to the remaining ships, adapting their approach for each vessel's unique damage patterns. As they worked on the final ship, Mark watched the fleet's position carefully. They were cutting it incredibly close. The outer ships had already begun to drift, their engines straining to maintain position. Last buffer system online in 3, 2, 1. Jack's voice counted down. Everyone held their breath as the final system activated. Lights flickered across the massive fleet as all 12 buffer systems worked together, stabilizing the quantum drive matrices. All ships showing green. Susan announced, her voice breaking with relief. Crystal matrices are stable. We did it. The celebration that followed was like nothing any of them had ever seen. Humans cheered and hugged each other in zero gravity, while aliens created spectacular light shows with their bodies, their joy transcending the barriers between their species. But they weren't finished yet. The fleet's orbit still needed to be corrected, and the buffer systems would require monitoring and adjustment. However, the immediate crisis was over, and something remarkable had happened along the way. Humans and aliens had learned to work together, combining advanced technology with practical innovation. They had proven that sometimes the best solutions come not from perfect systems, but from understanding how to work with imperfection. As the fleet's engines powered up for the first time in weeks, Mark looked at his exhausted but proud crew. Well done, everyone. Now let's get these ships back on course. The mission wasn't over, but the hardest part was behind them. Together, they had achieved the impossible. 1 month after the crisis, the alien fleet hung in stable orbit around Jupiter. The massive crystalline ships no longer showed signs of distress. Instead, they glowed with healthy light, their quantum drives purring along with their new hybrid systems. In the fleet's main assembly chamber, Captain Mark Wilson stood before a gathering of humans and aliens. The room was a spectacular sight. Hundreds of crystalline beings floating in zero gravity, their bodies creating patterns of light that danced across the walls, while human crew members watched from specially designed floating platforms. Today marks not just the end of our emergency mission, Mark began, his voice carried by translators throughout the fleet. It marks the beginning of something much more important. First Guide White Crystal floated forward, their glow particularly bright. The human crew of Prometheus has done more than save our fleet, they announced. They have taught us a vital lesson about the true nature of advancement. Jack Miller, now wearing a clean uniform instead of his worn spacesuit, smiled as he remembered the past month. After stabilizing the fleet, the humans had stayed to help improve the buffer systems. But more importantly, they had helped the aliens learn to think differently. For centuries, we believed perfect systems were the answer to everything. White Crystal continued. We created technology so advanced that we lost the ability to adapt, to improvise, to see solutions in imperfection. Humans showed us that true intelligence isn't about having perfect answers. It's about finding new ways to solve problems. Susan Lee, standing next to Jack, watched as Blue demonstrated their point. The alien engineer, who had worked so closely with them, deliberately created an imperfect light pattern, something that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Then, they showed how the imperfection actually created beautiful new possibilities. In recognition of humanity's service, White Crystal announced, "We offer two gifts. First, we will share our quantum crystal technology with Earth, along with the hybrid improvements we developed together." A murmur of excitement went through the human crew. The aliens' technology, combined with human innovation, could solve many of Earth's problems. Second, White Crystal's glow intensified. We propose a permanent exchange program. Our engineers will study human problem-solving methods, while human engineers can learn about our technology. Together, we will create solutions neither of our species could develop alone. Mark stepped forward again. "We accept these gifts with gratitude, and we offer one in return. Earth's space programs will help establish a joint human-alien engineering academy. There we can combine the best of both our approaches, alien precision and human creativity." The chamber erupted in celebration. Human cheers mixed with alien light displays, creating a moment of pure joy that bridged the gap between their very different species. Later, on the observation deck of Prometheus, Mark found Jack and Susan looking out at the fleet. "Hard to believe it's been a month," Jack said, watching a group of human engineers teaching aliens how to play zero-gravity basketball. "Remember when they thought our primitive technology couldn't help them?" Susan laughed. "Now they're fascinated by everything we do. Blue asked me yesterday why we didn't teach them about duct tape sooner. They called it quantum adhesive strips and started studying its molecular structure." "That's the real victory here," Mark said thoughtfully. "Not just saving the fleet, but showing that different ways of thinking are valuable. Sometimes you need precise quantum calculations, and sometimes you need a roll of duct tape and a crazy idea." Through the window, they could see the first transport ships arriving from Earth, bringing new teams of human engineers and scientists. At the same time, alien vessels were preparing to visit Earth, carrying their own experts eager to learn the human way of problem-solving. "You know what the aliens are calling us now?" Susan asked with a smile. "The universal engineers. They're telling other species about how humans can fix anything, even technology we barely understand." "Well," Jack grinned, "they're not wrong. Give a human an impossible problem and some basic tools, and we'll find a way to solve it," Mark finished. "Speaking of which, the aliens want our help redesigning their ships to be more adaptable. Something about not putting all their quantum crystals in one basket." They all laughed at that. The mission had changed them all, humans and aliens alike. It had proven that the greatest advancement comes not from having the most advanced technology, but from being willing to learn new ways of thinking. As they watched Earth's ships approach, they knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community, not as conquered or conquerors, but as problem solvers, innovators, and friends. The universe would never be quite the same.